So, what did I think of Survivor Series 2015? Well, I didn't like it. It was not a good show. Not a good show. The reaction online to it seems to be a lot more venomous in their hatred of it. Like a lot of anger and frustration and. They're like, oh, WWE's a piece of shit and all this other stuff. I wouldn't say it's one of the worst shows ever. I've certainly seen worse than this. It was just a lifeless show. They did pretty much everything I expected them to do. Failed to leave an impression. Many of the matches kind of fell flat. It was just a flat, dull show, and it wasn't good. It's just it wasn't good. I don't know what else to say, but I don't think it was one of the worst shows ever, like a lot of people seem to be saying. It was just an unfortunately dull, boring, lifeless show, which is bad in its own right. And going over the card, you had the pre-show Survivor Series match, which I tuned into about 5 minutes into it. And I couldn't help but notice that, 5-man team with one elimination, the only one that gets eliminated is the young star with potential in Neville. I'm like, okay, sure, of course that happened. But that match was dull and lifeless and kind of awkward. Didn't really care for that. Then you get into the main show, and the best thing about the pay-per-view were actually the two tournament matches that kicked the show off. I thought Del Rio and Reigns had a good match that actually had some nice callbacks to the earlier tournament matches, like the Tree of Woe into the double foot stump spot. Because that helped Del Rio advance in the tournament, there was actually some drama there when he was setting it up on Reigns. It was like, oh my God, Del Rio's going to win. And they were actually able to kind of play with that a little bit. So I was like, okay, that match was good. I enjoyed that. I wish the injury to Roman's arm actually played some kind of a role in the finals, but, just for the sake of having some kind of consistency. But whatever. I had the same complaint about the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic on NXT, too. So I guess everybody just... injuries aren't supposed to actually impact future matches. I don't know. I also thought Ambrose versus Kevin Owens was a solid match. Ambrose and Reigns won, which was no surprise to me. I predicted it was going to be Ambrose and Reigns in the finals. But before we get to that point, let's talk about some of the stuff that happened in the middle. We had another 5-on-5 Survivor Series match that was just concocted and thrown together for the sake of cramming guys onto the card. There was no real story here, no real feud or anything. And that's the thing. In the old days of the Survivor Series, back in my day, back when I was a kid, and there was only 4 or 5 pay-per-views a year, Survivor Series was a big deal because the whole card would be nothing but these elimination matches. And you'd have guys that were feuding with each other, getting to face each other for the first time in a tag match. And this would kind of be, like, the elimination match would kind of be like a buffer in the feud before you get to the actual payoff match. The problem nowadays is that you get a bunch of those buffer build-up tag matches on Raw every single week, so the novelty's kind of been killed. But yeah, you'd see guys like teaming up that you'd never see before. You'd see guys facing each other that were rare and you wouldn't see normally on TV. So the Survivor Series was really cool. Nowadays, in the 3-hour Raw formats and the weekly tag matches, that kind of thing has kind of gone out the window. So the Survivor Series elimination matches really don't feel as special unless there's a big stipulation attached to it, like last year with the Authority and their power being on the line. You didn't have that this year. It was just a bunch of random people that they threw together to make a match. And it was just like... It was really awkward when the New Day just walked out. I thought they were setting up for something where the New Day would come out and like steal the win or something after everyone had thought that they had forfeited. But no, they just kind of... whatever. Sheamus kind of got fed to the wolves there. Which, really, I question... Okay, here's the thing. They did that to Sheamus just to trick people into thinking he wasn't going to cash in the Money in the Bank later in the show. The problem is, I knew that him cashing in at the end of the show was entirely still possible, whether he won that random-ass Survivor Series match or not, because they do that type of shit all the time. They'll trick us into thinking something's not going to happen by making somebody look like shit. And they constantly do things like that. But, they do it with their Money in the Bank winners. Most of the time, like CM Punk, they did it to him both times where he would like lose matches all the time. Just a minute, it's like, no, when he cashes in, it'll be shocked. They won't see it coming. It's like, no, you just made him look like shit on his path to the title. And it's like, I feel like even if he has this guaranteed title shot, you should be building him up and making him look credible. So he seems like more of a threat. But whatever. I am getting really sick and tired of the dog pile spot, and I think I've gone on this rant before, but whatever. I like to be as repetitive as the WWE, apparently. The dog pile spot is that spot you see in a bunch of tag matches or multi-man matches where somebody will, there'll be a plancha or something outside the ring, and then somebody else in the match will dive onto those two guys, and then another guy will join in and dive on the three guys, and then continuously going until everybody's dived on top of each other or whatever. I don't like it. It doesn't make sense especially if it's a tag match. It's like, all right, you're hurting your partners. Why are you doing that? That's stupid. It doesn't add anything to the story of the match or make anything dramatically interesting. If anything, it brings the story to a complete halt just to do shit. Just to basically wave keys in front of a toddler. It's like, oh, big high spot, but it doesn't make any sense and it doesn't really matter and it doesn't impact the story in any way, shape, or form, so who gives a shit? And it looks the same almost every single time they do it, so who cares? So please stop doing the dog pile spot. I know, this is going to fall on deaf ears, but I don't care. Really sick of that. I thought the match was kind of dull and flat, and the ending was awkward and didn't really work for me. I believe next was Paige versus Charlotte, which the effort was there. The girls definitely tried. The crowd couldn't give two shits, and I think a large reason is because, the whole Divas Revolution is really not panned out for reasons beyond the girls' control. It's not their fault. When you have to wrestle the same goddamn tag matches every single week, and when the girls are treated as interchangeable components in this whole thing, it's hard for the audience to really invest and to really care. They've run into that problem with the Intercontinental title, the U.S. title, tag division. It's a recurring problem in pro wrestling, and I think that's had a negative impact on the Divas division and on this match in particular, because on paper, Charlotte versus Paige should be tremendous, but, they didn't handle the build-up all that well. The segment on Raw the week before, which I didn't talk about in my last video, but was really kind of desperate and a little, going a little too far by referencing Reed Flair. Charlotte was clearly uncomfortable with doing it. Paige tried to make it work as best she could, but it just kind of fell flat. And I think, when you have a kind of a weak sauce build-up, the crowd's just not going to care, and it's hard to win them back. And I think the girls ran into that problem here. They put forth a great effort in front of a crowd that just didn't care. And that's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Apparently, they're going to get a ladder match at the TLC pay-per-view, which, okay, maybe that'll be something. I mean, certainly, and I think Paige and Charlotte can pull it off. So we'll see how that goes. Fingers crossed, and hopefully they don't do anything too stupid in the build-up this time. So we'll see how that all plays out. What else? They did Tyler Breeze versus Dolph Ziggler, which was just a buffer match. I'm glad Tyler won. Because I'm a big fan of his, and I'm all in favor of pushing him, but I'm still, in the back of my mind, I'm still kind of waiting for them to screw him up. That match just sort of happened. Then we got Undertaker and Kane versus the Wyatt family, which... Okay, I got a rant here. I already went off on the segment they did on Raw a couple weeks ago where Undertaker and Kane came back and basically just obliterated the Wyatt family. I said it hurt the build-up. I said, it made the Wyatts look weak before the pay-per-view match, and it kind of took some of the heat off of them, and it really negatively impacted the build-up to this match and negatively impacted the storyline. They didn't answer any of the questions that I had regarding the storyline, like where did the Wyatts take Undertaker and Kane? How did Bray take their powers? How did Kane and Undertaker get free? Why did the Wyatts not know they had gotten free? What the hell happened behind the scenes? And I hate to make this comparison, but if this were Lucha Underground, you would know all of that shit. You would have seen all of that shit play out in these really over-the-top, wonderful cinematic scenes that would have looked great, and you would have had a more naturally flowing story as a result. But here, it's like, it just left a bunch of unanswered questions, and, so the story felt incomplete. The build-up to the match was hurt by that one segment that they did. And then you get to this match, and the Wyatts get completely destroyed by Undertaker and Kane, all for the sake of nostalgia. Now, if you were not going to tell a complete story, if you were just going to serve up the Wyatt family on a silver platter to the Brothers of Destruction, if you were just going to make if you were just going to make Undertaker and Kane's opponents look like dog shit, and if this was all done just for the sake of nostalgia and to get the Undertaker nostalgia spots and to pop the crowd and to give everybody a feel-good moment, then why didn't you just put them up against two low-level guys? Why didn't you just put them up against the Ascension, who are basically just jobbers at this point, or like Zack Ryder and Bo Dallas, or something like that? Because if the end game is just nostalgia and hitting those spots, can we at least do it to guys that aren't going to be, negatively impacted by it? I mean, fuck, getting jobbed out to Undertaker is like a step up for Zack Ryder. So but when you have this strong heel monster faction in the Wyatts, that it's like, all right, they've got him back on track. They've got a pretty good thing going here. It does them no favors to just feed him to Undertaker. It doesn't give him a rub. It just makes them look like garbage. Two guys beat the shit out of four. The monster image is ruined. It's just it just didn't work. It's just you're just negatively impacting your future. And I ask people to remember, what did they do with Undertaker when he first debuted? Because we're celebrating 25 years here. So what did they do when he first debuted? They had him feud with the Ultimate Warrior in a feud where he went toe-to-toe with Warrior and actually got the last laugh on him by having the King Cobra bite him and locking him in that room with Jake Roberts' help. Don't ask. So Undertaker technically won that feud because Ultimate Warrior did his whole walkout thing right after that, and they never revisited the storyline. So, but whatever. It was weird. But anyway, so he went toe-to-toe with the Ultimate Warrior and actually got the better of him. Then I referenced it last week. He had that segment where he beat the shit out of Hogan, ripped the crucifix off, and then intimidated Randy Savage and Roddy Piper, which that made me go, holy shit. I was like, this guy is... You don't fuck with The Undertaker. He beats Hogan for the title. His first two WrestleManias, he beats Jimmy Snuka, a Hall of Famer. He beats Jake Roberts and sits up from the DDT, also a Hall of Famer. If Undertaker were coming up now, he would have lost to Jimmy Snuka for the sake of a nostalgia spot. Jake Roberts would have beat him. Hogan would have beat him. Hogan did beat him at Tuesday in Texas, but that was, again, that was part of the storyline to establish a controversy for who was the true WWE champion. That played into what happened at the Royal Rumble later on. So it was actually like a story there, and he still beat Hogan, so at worst it evened out. Undertaker looked pretty damn good early on. Bray, he's 0-2 at WrestleMania. His faction got taken from him. Then they gave it back to him just so they could serve him up to Undertaker like lunch meat. He's directionless. They seem like they don't know what to do with him half the time. They clearly want to use him because he got over, has a great presentation, great style and everything, but there's this constant, we got to keep feeding the past. We got to keep feeding the past. And could you imagine if that mindset had been applied to King of the Ring 1996? Oh, well, Jake Roberts, he's a legend, and we want to get the nostalgia pop, and we want to have a feel-good moment, so Jake Roberts needs to go over and win the King of the Ring tournament. No, they had Stone Cold Steve Austin go over. He beat the old guy, and the reign of Stone Cold Steve Austin begins. Austin 316 was born that night. They're constantly cutting these young guys' legs out from under them, and all to keep feeding the past. And sooner or later, those past stars aren't going to be available to you. So what are you going to do when that happens? I I shudder to think. Bray Wyatt is a guy that they should have looked at and gone, we want to make him into our next Undertaker. Because Undertaker's best days are behind him. I don't care what anybody says. His best days are behind him. The fact that he only wrestles once or twice a year is evidence of that. He's a part-timer that gets, they dust him off whenever they want to do a nostalgia spot. Actually, he worked he worked 4 matches this year, which is the most he's worked, I think, in a long time, in the last few years or so. And, he's not a regular presence on the show, is basically my point. He's old, his best days are over, let's try and make a new Undertaker. Let's try and run with Bray Wyatt and try to make him that guy. And I think maybe they wanted to do that, but they don't want to have Undertaker's legacy get destroyed, even though I don't know how Bray Wyatt beating him destroys his legacy, but whatever. All these opportunities, and they just keep hamstringing them, and I don't get it. I don't understand it. And you watch this match; it was all about just hitting the nostalgia spots. The Wyatts they look like chumps. Of course, Bray Wyatt. Speaking within the storyline, I have to question his strategizing, his strategery, if you will. It was like, all right, you can pick any 2 members of your team to represent you. And you don't pick the monster man giant that nobody can knock off his feet? Okay. Okay. Braun Strowman sits outside. He takes a powder and watches you guys work. Okay, sure. But whatever. That's just basic nitpicking. But this match was just all about making Undertaker look good, and by doing so, the Wyatts just look like shit. And the whole strong heel monster stable they had going for them, they've pretty much just flushed that down the drain at this point. It took. I thought, like a lot of people did, that this was going to be a 4-on-4 Survivor Series match. Undertaker was going to have to get partners to even the odds and find some way to overcome the Wyatts. Instead, it just takes 2 guys to beat 4. And yes, officially the match was 2 versus 2, but they beat the shit out of all 4 of them. So the Wyatts just got made to look like chumps. And they didn't do anything with the storyline. They didn't answer any of my questions. I wasn't expecting them to do the whole crazy idea I had where Bray Wyatt was revealed as The Undertaker's son. But they didn't do anything crazy like that. But they didn't do anything. It was just all about nostalgia and making the crowd happy and doing your big tribute to the past, but in doing so, you kind of hurt your future too. Because what does Bray do now? What do the Wyatts do now? Who cares now? You've basically just neutered them at this point. So this match was garbage. I was just angry while watching it, and I knew in the back of my mind, I knew that the way it played out was entirely a possibility, just based on what happened on Raw a couple weeks ago. And I'm like, they're just, oh my god, this is bad. This is real bad. I'm not saying Undertaker looked like shit or Kane looked like shit or anything like that. I'm just saying, just the whole presentation of the match was shit. Is basically my point. It's just I'm watching their monster heel stable get annihilated for no reason at all. And as I said, it's like maybe you should take a chance on those young guys. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. It's just a thing you should probably be doing. But, I hated that match. It made me angry. So, it is what it is. Then you had Roman Reigns versus Dean Ambrose in the finals. Tad anticlimactic. Roman Reigns won. And then immediately after that, I was like, all right, we're either getting a heel turn or a Sheamus cash in. And sure enough, Sheamus cashed in, stole the title. And now we've got Sheamus versus Roman Reigns to look forward to at TLC, which I'm sure the TLC gimmick will mask some of the weaknesses, and they'll just stiff the hell out of each other and make at least a watchable match out of it. But I just don't care about either guy. That's the problem. I am not invested in either character at all. I'm even less invested in Sheamus than I am in Roman Reigns. Sheamus is just the most boring guy on the planet to me, and they've done virtually nothing with him since he won the Money in the Bank, except have him wrestle Randy Orton 48 times, which, love those matches. And, I don't know. I don't know. It's like, if this feud between Sheamus and Reigns goes beyond December, which it most likely will, because WWE loves to have 85 rematches to every feud that they do, Raw's going to be pretty dull for a while, I think, and not that it hasn't been dull already, but this is not good. And asking me to pick a preference over Roman Reigns and Sheamus is just downright evil. It is just downright evil of the WWE to do that with me, and because I just see nothing there. And the thing with Roman, they're clearly trying to do the Daniel Bryan story with him, where the Authority keeps screwing him out of the title and he just can't win the big one or whatever. And they're trying to do that Daniel Bryan thing. The problem, why it worked for Bryan and why it doesn't work for Reigns, is Bryan, we all liked him, but the company refused to push him. So they basically just made that into a storyline. They took our perception that, oh, they're not pushing Bryan because he's little and he doesn't have the look that they like and blah, 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 blah. But fuck that. We like him anyway, so fuck them for not pushing him. They're basically just taking our perception and making that into the storyline. And that's why it works so beautifully, because it was so believable, because we already believed it. With Reigns, they're trying to say that he's not the corporate pick, and we know he's the corporate pick. It's clear as day that he's the corporate pick. So them gearing the storyline in a way that says he's not is just laughable. It's like whenever they did it to Cena. And it's like, oh, Cena's the rebel against authority. I'm like, no, he's not. He's the corporate image of the company. He's more of a promoter than Vince is at this point. So that's bullshit. So it's just, the story just kind of crumbles underneath itself. And I think back, again, going back to the past, I think back to when they pushed previous guys like Rocky Maivia, and if, they tried to push him and push him and push him, and they weren't getting over and they weren't working, the fans just weren't accepting him, they would find ways to tweak it to make it work, and ultimately they turned Rocky heel, made him The Rock, and the rest is history. He found a platform that got over, and he was able to grow and develop from there. Roman, I'm not saying he's never going to be a main event star. I mean, they basically already made him a main event star, whether you like it or not. I mean, that's just how it... He's like, they force-fed him into the main event. It's like, fuck you if you don't like it. We're making him a main eventer. But, they refuse to turn him heel. They refuse to make any changes to him. They refuse to do anything. They can insist on having him cut promos, which is a bad idea because he sucks on the mic. They didn't do anything to change it. They just kept forcing him down your throat. The biggest change they made was not having him win the belt at WrestleMania. But that was just prolonging the inevitable, really, and just, that's really all that was. But, it's just, I don't buy it, and that's the thing. And with Roman, they didn't change anything with him. And, no heel turn, no change of his outfit, the music. I mean, you didn't think to change anything. You just kept forcing him down our throats as is and just expecting people to change their minds. I'm like, that's not going to work. I mean, that's just, maybe if you turn Roman heel, that'll give him a platform where he can shine better, and then you can eventually have him evolve into a face, much like The Rock did, much like... Stone Cold Steve Austin did, or Randy Savage did in a way. Although Randy never had any problems getting over, but you kind of get my point. It's like they started him off as a heel, and then he eventually evolved into a face, turned heel, and then turned face again, or, yada, 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 whatever. But, you got to put the guys in situations that they can succeed and that they can... potentially grow and develop. And Roman, it's like they just kind of picked him and said, nope, he's our guy, fuck you if you don't like it, and they'll just keep ramming him down and down and down our throats without changing anything. And that, it makes the story make no sense. It makes the story not believable, and that's the problem. I mean, nobody buys it. I mean, just nobody buys that the corporate guys are just like, nah, not Roman, fuck that guy. It's like, no, come on. It's like, we all know that he's clearly the guy that you have plans for, and he's the guy that you want to be in that spot. So that was Survivor Series. It was a dog shit show. It was not a good show. Not a good show. Failed to leave much of an impression. Like I said, the tournament played out pretty much exactly how I expected it to. Because I said it was either going to be a heel turn with Roman or Ambrose or Sheamus cash in, and, it played out pretty much how I thought it would. And the other thing, obviously the Undertaker-Wyatt's match pretty much played out exactly how I thought it would, and the rest of the show was just kind of dull. Like I said, the 2 tournament matches are good, but that does not a great show make. Especially when those 2 matches are used to set up the finale that I didn't care about. Just not good. Just not a good pay-per-view. Not a good pay-per-view at all. But Lucha Underground Season 2 is filming. That makes me happy. I can't wait for that to come back. It's going to be great. But, yeah, that's all I have for now. Obviously, this will be my last video before Thanksgiving. So, hope you all have a great Thanksgiving. Have plenty of fun. If you're traveling, have safe travels. Don't let Planes, Trains, and Automobiles scare you. That movie is a work of fiction, I should say. But I hope you all have a great holiday and a great feast. I love Thanksgiving. The food is just, of course, it helps that I come from a family where the women my mom is a hell of a cook. So it's gonna be good. I'm gonna enjoy it. But that is all I have for you now. I'll have another video up sometime this weekend. But until then, peace out, everybody.